Wonder why the throne thing started showing up on screen all the time. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. Ugh. Should change that strain elements announcement. Hello, hello. Oh, there's chat. That was kind of funky that it was visible for a moment, but hey, that's how things go. Yeah, we want to change that stream elements notification. Anyway, tonight we'll be continuing Dracula. We've only made it up to chapter 13 so far. And we're not quite halfway through the book. And, yeah. Hope everyone's doing good tonight. I had to take a break real quick. Be right back. Thank you, Guilty. Where the heck was that music coming from? That music? Yeah, music. What the hell? No idea where that music was coming from. Anyway, have a good night at work. Oh, man. Excuse me. Yeah, my volume was ignored. I was barely hearing myself. Anyway. Ouch. Reading more of Dracula tonight. I have to get something to drink. Probably not something I should be drinking, but I'm drinking it anyway. Because, yeah, why do I have two different chat things on here? Messing with my own stuff. Is my volume really that low, or am I just talking softly? Oh, right, I got the set differently. That showed up on the microphone. Audio. It's headset to the headset mic. What the hell? I thought it was set to the computer mic. Oh, wait, my volume was turned down. Okay, eventually I'll figure out what the hell I'm doing. I think over a year I might have some clue by now, but apparently not. Anyway, what time is it? It is 9:06. It's a few more minutes before we get into Dracula. Oh, guess I'll go ahead and some the Twitters that I'm reading. Okay. What's a Bunsley? There's so many freaking Pokemon I don't even know anymore. But anyway, hope everyone has had an awesome day. Why didn't it shout out guilty when he posted? It's supposed about being a pain again. Frickin' A. Really? I shouted out, then Fossabot shouted out, then everyone shouted out. Oh, so you shout out. There we go. I need to incorporate that into the commands. Of course, Fossabot was supposed to do an auto shout out, but bots never seem to work right anymore. So let's skip over to the reading screen. Next, the original reading room, as opposed to the reading room I'm doing for Christmas stories. And it is... Oh, there it is, 9:10. And now I get to read. Chapter 13. Dr. Seward's Diary continued. The funeral was arranged for the next succeeding day so that Lucy and her mother might be buried together. I attended to all the ghastly formalities, and the urbane undertaker proved that his staff were afflicted, or blessed, with something of his own obsequious suavity. Even the women who performed the last offices for the dead remarked to me, in a confidential, rather professional way, when she had come out of the death chamber. "She makes a very beautiful corpse, sir. It is quite a privilege to attend on her. It's not too much to say that she will do credit to our establishment." I noticed that Van Helsing never kept far away. This was possible from the disordered state of things in the household. There were no relatives at hand, and as Arthur had to be back the next day to attend to his father's funeral, we were unable to notify anyone who should have been bidden. Under the circumstances, Van Helsing and I took it upon ourselves to examine papers, etc. He insisted upon looking over Lucy's papers himself. I asked him why, for I feared that he, being a foreigner, might not be quite aware of the English legal requirements, and so might in ignorance make some unnecessary trouble. He answered me, I know. You forget that I am a lawyer as well as a doctor. But this is not altogether for the law. You knew that when you avoided the coroner. I have more than him to avoid. There may be papers such as this." As he spoke, he took from his pocketbook the memorandum which had been in Lucy's breast, and which she had torn in her sleep. "When you find anything of the solicitor who is for the late Mrs. Westernia, seal all her papers, and write him tonight. For me, I will watch here in the room, in Miss Lucy's old room tonight, and myself search for what may be. It is not well that her very thoughts go into the hands of strangers." I went on with my part of the work, and in another half-hour had found the name and address of Mrs. Westernia's solicitor, and had written to him. All the poor lady's papers were in order. Explicit directions regarding the place of burial were given. I had hardly sealed the letter when, to my surprise, Van Helsing walked into the room, saying, "Can you help me, friend John? I am free, and if I may, my service is to you." "Have you got what you looked for?" I asked, to which he replied, "I did not look for anything specific. I only hoped to find, and find I have, all that was there. Some old letters and a few memoranda, and a diary new begun. But I have them here, and shall for the present say nothing of them. I shall see that poor lad tomorrow evening, and, with his sanction, I shall use some." When we finished the work in hand, he said to me, "And now, friend John, I think we may to bed. We want to sleep, both you and I, and rest to recuperate. Tomorrow we shall have much to do, but for tonight there is no need of us, alas." Before turning in, we went back to poor Lucy. The undertaker had certainly done his work well, for the room was turned into a small chapelle ardente. There was a wilderness of beautiful white flowers, and death was made as little repulsive as might be. The end of the winding sheet was laid over her face. When the professor bent over and turned it back gently, we both stared at her beauty before us. The tall wax candle showing with sufficient light to note it well. All Lucy's loveliness had come back to her in death, and the hours that had passed, instead of leaving traces of decay effacing fingers, had but restored the beauty of life, till positively I could not believe my eyes that I was looking at a corpse. The professor looked sternly grave. He had not loved her as I had, and there was no need for tears in his eyes. He said to me, "Remain till I return," and he left the room. He came back with a handful of wild garlic from the box waiting in the hall, which had not been opened, and placed the flowers amongst the others on the and around the bed. Then he took from his neck, inside his collar, a little gold crucifix and placed it over the mouth. He restored the sheet to its place, and we came away. I was undressing in my own room when, with a premonitory tap at the door, he entered, and at once began to speak. "Tomorrow I want you to bring me, before night, a set of post-mortem knives." "Must we make an autopsy?" I said. "Yes and no. I want to operate, but not as you think. Let me tell you now, but not a word to another. I want to cut off her head and take out her heart. Ah, you a surgeon, and so shocked. You, whom I have seen no tremble hand or heart, do operations of life and death that make the rest shudder. Oh, but I must not forget, my dear John, that you loved her, and I have not forgotten it. For it is I that shall operate, and you must only help. I would like to do it tonight, but for Arthur I must not. He will be free after his father's funeral tomorrow, and he will want to see her, to see it. And then, when she is coffined ready for the next day, you and I shall come when all sleep. We shall unscrew the coffin lid, and shall do our operation, and then replace all, so that none know, save we alone." "But why do it at all? The girl is dead. Why mutilate her poor body without need? And if there's no necessity for a post-mortem and nothing to gain by it, and no good to her, to us, to science and to human knowledge, why do it? Without such, it is monstrous." For answer, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, with infinite tenderness, "Friend John, I pity your poor bleeding heart, and I love you more because it does bleed so. If I could, I would take on myself the burden that you do not bear. But there are things you know not, but that you shall know, and bless me for knowing, though they are not pleasant things. John, my child, you have been my friend for many years, and yet did you ever know me to do anything without good cause? I may err, but I am man. But I believe in all I do. Was it not for these causes that you sent for me when the great trouble came? Yes. You were not amazed, nay horrified, when I would not let Arthur kiss his love, though she was dying, and snatched him away by all my strength? Yes. And yet you saw how she thanked me, with her own beautiful dying eyes, her voice, too, so weak, and she'd kiss my rough hand and bless me, yes. And did you not hear me swear promise to her, that so she closed her eyes grateful? Yes. Well, I have good reason for all I do and want to do. You have many years trust me. You have believed me past weeks. When there are things so strange that you might well doubt, believe me yet a little, friend John. If you trust me not, then I must tell what I think, and that is perhaps well. And if I work, as work I shall, no matter trust or no trust, without my friend trust in me. I work with a heavy heart, and feel, oh, so lonely when I want all help and courage that may be." He paused a moment, then went on solemnly. Friend John, there are strange and terrible days before us. Let us not be two, but one, that so we work to a good end. Will you not have faith in me? I took his hand and promised him. I held my door open as he went away, and watched him go into his room and close the door. As I stood without moving, I saw one of the maids pass silently along the passage. She had her back towards me and did not see me, and go into the room where Lucy lay. The sight touched me. Devotion is so rare, and we are so grateful to those who show it unasked to those we love. Here was a poor girl putting aside the terrors which she naturally had of death to go watch alone by the briar of the mistress whom she loved, so that the poor clay might not be lonely till laid to eternal rest. I must have slept long and soundly, for it was broad daylight when Van Helsing waked me by coming into my room. He came over to my bedside and said, "You need not trouble about the knives. We shall not do it." "Why not?" I asked, for his solemnity of the night before had greatly impressed me. "Because," he said sternly, "it is too late, or too early. See?" Here he held up the little golden crucifix. "This was stolen in the night." "How stolen?" I asked in wonder, "since you have it now." "Because I get it back from the worthless wretch who stole it, from the woman who robbed the dead and the living. Her punishment will surely come, but not through me. She knew not altogether what she did, and thus unknowing she only stole. Now we must wait." He went away on the word, leaving me with a new mystery to think of, a new puzzle to grapple with. The forenoon was a dreary time, but at noon the solicitor came, Mr. Marquand, of Holman, Sons, Marquand and Litterdale. He was very genial and very appreciative of what we had done, and took off our hands all cares as to details. During lunch he told us that Mrs. Westrana had for some time expected sudden death from her heart, and had put her affairs in absolute order. He informed us that, with the exception of certain entailed property of Lucy's father, which now, in default of direct issue, went back to the distant branch of the family, the whole estate, real and personal, was left absolutely to Arthur Holmwood. What he had told us so much, he went on. Frankly, we did our best to prevent such a testimony disposition, and pointed out certain contingencies that might leave her daughter either penniless or not so free as she would be to act regarding matrimonial alliance. Indeed, we pressed the matter so far that we almost came to a collision, for she asked us if we were or were not prepared to carry out her wishes. Of course, we had then no alternative but to accept. We were right in the principle, and 99 times out of 100 we should have proved, by the logic of events, the accuracy of our judgment. Frankly, however, I must admit that in the case, any other form of disposition would have rendered impossible the carrying out of her wishes. For her, by preceding her daughter, the latter would have come into possession of the property, and, even had she only survived her mother by 5 minutes, her property would, in case there were no will, and a will was a practical impossibility in such a case, have been treated at her decease as under infancy. In which case, Lord Golding, though a dear friend, would have had no claim in the world, and the inheritors, being remote, would not be likely to abandon their just rights for sentimental reasons regarding the entire stranger. I assure you, my dear sirs, I am rejoiced at the result, perfectly rejoiced. He was a good fellow, but his rejoicing at the little part in which he was officially interested of so great a tragedy was an object lesson in the limitations of sympathetic understanding. He did not remain long, but he said he would look in later in the day and see Lord Golding. His coming, however, had been a certain comfort to us, since it assured us that we should not have to dread hostile criticism as to any of our acts. Arthur was expected at 5 o'clock, so a little before that time we visited the death chamber. It was, in so very truth, for now both mother and daughter lay in it. The undertaker, true to his craft, had made the best display he could of his goods, and there was a mortuary air about the place that lowered our spirits at once. Van Helsing ordered the former arrangements to be adhered to, explaining that, as Lord Godalming was coming very soon, it would be less harrowing to his feelings to see all that was left of his fiancée quite alone. The undertaker seemed shocked at his own stupidity, and exerted himself to restore things to the condition in which we left them the night before. So that Arthur came in, and such shocks to his feelings as we could avoid were saved. Hey, Abby. 20 people? Wow, okay. Poor fellow, he looked desperately sad and broken. Even his stalwart manhood seemed to have shrunk somewhat under the strain of his much-tried emotions. He had, I knew, been very genuinely and devotedly attached to his father, and to lose him, and at such a time, was a bitter blow to him. With me he was warm as ever, and to Van Helsing he was sweetly courteous, but I could not help seeing that there was some constraint with him. The professor noticed it too, and motioned me to bring him upstairs. I did so, and left him at the door of the room, as I felt he would like some quiet time alone with her. But he took my arm and led me in, saying huskily, "You loved her too, old fellow. She told me all about it, and there was no friend that had a closer place in her heart than you. I don't know how to thank you for all you've done for her. I can't think yet." He suddenly broke down and threw his arms around my shoulders and laid his head on my breast, crying, "Oh, Jack, Jack, what shall I do? The whole life seems gone from me all at once, and there is nothing in the wide world for me to live for." I comforted him as well as I could. In such cases, men do not need much expression. A grip of the hand and tightening of an arm over the shoulder, a sob in unison, and expressions of sympathy dear to a man's heart. I stood still and silent till his sobs died away. Then I said softly to him, look at her." Together we moved over to the bed and lifted the lawn from her face. God, how beautiful she was. Every hour seemed to be enhancing her loveliness. It frightened and amazed me somewhat, and as for Arthur, he fell trembling and suddenly shaking with doubt, as with an ague. At last, after a long pause, he said to me in a faint whisper, "Jack, is she really dead?" I assured him sadly that it was so, and went on to suggest, for I felt that such a horrible doubt should not have life for a moment longer than it could help, that it often happened that after death faces became softened, and even resolved into their youthful beauty. This was as especially so when death was preceded by any acute or prolonged suffering. It seemed to quite do away with any doubt, and after kneeling beside the couch for a while and looking at her lovingly and long, he turned aside. I told him that he must be goodbye, as a coffin had been prepared. So he went back and took her dead hand in his and kissed it, and bent over and kissed her forehead. He came away, fondly looking back over his shoulder at her as he came. I left him in the drawing-room and told Van Helsing that he had said goodbye, so the latter went to the kitchen to tell the undertaker's men to proceed with their preparations to screw up the coffin. When he came out of the room again, I told him of Arthur's question. He replied, "I am not surprised. Now I doubted for a moment myself." Drink. We all dined together, and I could see that poor Art was trying to make the best of things. Van Helsing had been silent all dinner time, but when he had lit our cigars, he said, "Lord," but Arthur interrupted him. "No, no, not that, for God's sake. Not at any rate yet. Forgive me, sir. I did not mean to speak offensively, but it is only because the loss is so recent." The professor answered sweetly, "I only used the name because I was in doubt. I must not call you Mister, and I have grown to love you. Yes, my dear boy, to love you, as Arthur." Woohoo, raid! Hey, Warren. So everyone, we are maybe a third of the way into chapter 13 of Dracula. They're prepping Lucy for a funeral. A Lager Bunny raid? Lager Bunny Frog raid! And I'm gonna have to fix sound alerts again because they're not doing their thing. None of my bots are doing the thing. Yeah, they're fired. Get some shoutouts. Helps if I could type. Okay. But even... dang it. This is what happens when I'm reaching for my keyboard. There we go. I really got to fix my sound alerts because there should have been like noises when raided and noises when joining. My auto shoutouts aren't working either. That's just screwy. To tinker with my bots. Switch over to just chatting for a moment. So, yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Kentron Valkyrie. If you couldn't figure that much out yet, um, I guess I'll probably be more going by the Wolf Storyteller, or the Story Wolf. And I did get the Wizard of Oz books ordered, so I've got the first 3 of the series coming. That's it. Maybe those as just regular records as opposed to streaming, because I'll have to figure out scheduling on all that. But it's going pretty good. We are at the dinner that they're eating after telling the undertakers to seal up Lucy's coffin. Ouch. And I'm subsequently kicking my desk because I keep moving my foot. So I guess everyone's stream went good. I saw that you were all three doing it, and I was lurking. I was lurking in all three, just trying to make sure you got counts. Because I am a notorious multi-lurker. Ouch. But yeah, let me jump back over to my reading screen. There we go. Let's see. This is a Wordsworth Classics edition of it, so. And normally I find all my books at estate sales, so I very rarely buy a new book. Just because I like old ones. And currently the oldest book that I own is a little over 100 years. Because I'm just that much of a nut job. But anyway, where was I? Let's see. Oh, there we go. And if you haven't listened to my streams before, I do attempt to do people's voices. So, yeah. That's just a warning. Arthur held out his hand and took the old man's warmly. "Call me what you will," he said. "I hope I may always have the title of friend. And let me say that I am at a loss for words, and thank you for your goodness to my poor dear." He paused a moment, and went on. "I know that she understood your goodness even better than I do. And if I was rude or in any way wanting at the time you acted so, you remember," the professor nodded, "you must forgive me." He answered with a grave kindness. "I know it was hard for you to trust me then. For to trust such violence needs to understand, and I take it that you do not. That you cannot trust me now, for you do not yet understand. And there may be more times when I shall want you to trust when you cannot, and may not, yet you must understand. But the time will come when your trust shall be whole and complete in me, and when you shall understand as though the sunlight himself shone through. And then you shall bless me from first to last for your own sake, and for the sake of others, and for her dear sake to whom I swore to protect." "And indeed, sir," said Arthur warmly, "I shall and always trust you. I know and believe you have a very noble heart, and you are Jack's friend, and you were hers. You shall do what you like." The professor cleared his throat a couple of times, as though to speak, and finally said, "May I ask you something now?" "Certainly." "You know that Mrs. Westerner left you all of her property?" "No, poor dear, I never thought of it." "And as it is yours, you have rights to deal with it as you will. I want you to give me permission to read all Miss Lucy's papers and letters. Believe me, it is no idle curiosity. I have a motive of which, be sure, she would have approved. I have them all here. I took them before we knew that they were all yours, so that no strange hand might touch them, no strange eye look through the words into her soul. I shall keep them, if I may. Even you may not see them yet, but I shall keep them safe. No words shall be lost, and in good time I shall give them back to you. It's a hard thing I ask, but you will do it, will you not, for Lucy's sake? Arthur spoke out heartily, like his old self. Dr. Van Helsing, you may do what you will. I feel that in saying this I am doing what my dear one would have approved. I shall not trouble you with questions till the time comes. The professor stood up, as he said solemnly, And you are right. There will be pain for us all. But it will not be at all pain, nor will this pain be the last. We, and you too, you most of all, my dear boy, will have to pass through the bitter water before we reach the sweet. But we must be brave of heart and unselfish, and do our duty, and all will be well. I slept on a sofa in Arthur's room that night. Van Helsing did not go to bed at all. He went to and fro as if patrolling the house, and was never out of sight of the room where Lucy lay in her coffin, strewn with the wild garlic flowers which sent, through the odor of the lily and the rose, a heavy, overpowering smell into the night. Mina Harker's Journal, 22 September. And the train to Exeter, Jonathan sleeping. It seems only yesterday that the last entry was made, and yet how much between them. In Whitby and all the world before me, Jonathan away, and no news of him, and now married to Jonathan. Jonathan a solicitor, a partner, rich, master of his business, Mr. Hawkins dead and buried, and Jonathan with another attack that may harm him. Some day he may ask me about it. Down it all goes. I'm rusty in my shorthand. See what unexpected prosperity does for us. It may be as well to freshen it up again, with an excuse anyhow. The service was very simple and very solemn. There were only ourselves and the servants there, one or two old friends from his Exeter, his London agent, and a gentleman representing Sir John Paxton, the president of the Incorporated Law Society. Jonathan and I stood hand in hand, and we felt that our best and dearest friend was gone from us. We came back to town quietly, taking a bus to Hyde Park Corner. Jonathan thought it would interest me to go into the Row for a while, so we sat down. But there were very few people there, and it was sad-looking and desolate to see so many empty chairs. It made us think of the empty chair at home, so we got up and walked down Piccadilly. Jonathan was holding me by the arm the way he used to in the old days, before I went to school. I felt so very improper, for you can't go on for some years teaching etiquette and decorum to other girls without pedantry of it biting itself. Do you bet? But it was Jonathan, and he was my husband, and we didn't know anybody who saw us, and we didn't care if they did, so on we walked. I was looking at a very beautiful girl in a big cartwheel hat, sitting in a Victoria outside Giuliano's, when I felt Jonathan clutch my arm so tight that he hurt me, and he said under my breath, "Oh God!" I'm always anxious about Jonathan, for I fear that some nervous fit may upset him again. So I turned to him quickly and asked him what it was that disturbed him. He was very pale, and his eyes seemed bulging out as terror and half in amazement. He gazed at a tall, thin man with a beaky nose and black mustache and a pointed beard, who was also observing the pretty girl. He was looking at her so hard that he did not see either of us, and so I had a good view of him. His face was not a good face. It was hard and cruel and sensual, and had big white teeth. All looked at the whiter because of his lips were so red, or pointed like an animal's. Jonathan kept staring at him, till I was afraid he would notice. I feared he might take it ill. He looked so fierce and nasty. I asked Jonathan why he was disturbed, and he answered, evidently thinking that I knew as much about it as he did. "Do you see who it is?" "No, dear," I said. "I don't know him. Who is it?" His answer seemed to shock and thrill me, for it was said that if he did not know that it was to be me, Mina, to whom he was speaking. "It is the man himself." The poor dear was evidently terrified at something, very greatly terrified. I do believe that if he had not had me to lean on and to support him, he would have sunk down. He kept staring. A man came out of the shop with a small parcel and gave it to the lady, who then drove off. The dark man kept his eyes fixed on her. When the carriage moved up Piccadilly, he followed in the same direction and hailed a hansom. Jonathan kept looking after him and said, as if to himself, "I believe it is the Count, but he has grown young. My God, if this be so! Oh, my God! My God! If I only knew! If I only knew!" He was distressing himself so much that I feared to keep his mind on the subject by asking him any questions, so I remained silent. I drew him away quietly, and he, holding my arm, came easily. We walked a little further, and then went in and sat down for a while in Green Park. It was a hot day for autumn, and there was a comfortable seat in a shady place. After a few minutes staring at nothing, Jonathan's eyes closed, and he went quietly into his sleep, with his head on my shoulder. I thought it was best thing for him, so I did not disturb him. In about 20 minutes he woke up and said to me quite cheerfully, "Why, Mina, have I been asleep? Oh, do forgive me for being so rude. Come, we'll have a cup of tea somewhere." He had evidently forgotten all about the dark stranger, and in his illness had forgotten all that this episode had reminded him of. I don't like this lapsing into forgetfulness. It may make or continue some injury to the brain. I must not ask him, for I fear I shall do more harm than good. But I must somehow learn the facts of his journey abroad. The time has come, I fear, when I must open that parcel and know what is written. Oh, Jonathan, you will, I know, forgive me if I do wrong, but it is for your own dear sake. Later. A sad homecoming in every way. The house empty of the dear soul who was so good to us. Jonathan still pale and dizzy under a slight relapse of his malady. And now a telegram from Van Helsing, whoever he may be. "You will be relieved to hear that Mrs. Westerner died 5 days ago, and that Lucy died the day before yesterday. They were both buried today." Oh, what a wealth of sorrow in so few words. Poor Mrs. Westerner. Poor Lucy. Gone. Gone never to return to us. And poor, poor Arthur. To have lost such sweetness out of his life. God help us all to bear our troubles. Dr. Seward's Diary, 22 September. It is all over. Arthur has gone back to Ring and has taken Quincy Morris with him. What a fine fellow is Quincy. I believe in my heart of hearts that he suffered as much about Lucy's death as any of us. But he bore himself through it like a moral Viking. If America can go on breeding men like that, she will be a power in the world indeed. Van Helsing is lying down, having a rest preparatory to his journey. He goes over to Amsterdam tonight. He says he returns tomorrow night. That he only wants to make some arrangements which can only be made personally. He has to stop with me then, if he can. He says he has work to do in London, which may take him some time. Poor old fellow. I fear that the strain of the past weeks has broken down even his iron strength. All the time of the burial he was, I could see, putting down some terrible restraint on himself. When it was all over, we were standing beside Arthur, who, poor fellow, was speaking of his part in the operation where the blood had been transfused into Lucy's veins. I could see Van Helsing's face grow white and purple by turns. Arthur was saying that he felt since then as if the two had been really married, and that she was his wife in the sight of God. None of us said a word to the other operations, and none of us ever shall. Arthur and Quincy went away together to the station, and Van Helsing and I came on here. The moment we were alone in the carriage, he gave way to a regular fit of hysterics. He has denied to me since it was hysterics, and insisted that it was only his sense of humor asserting itself under the terrible conditions. He laughed till he cried, and I had to draw down the blinds lest anyone should see us and misjudge, and then he cried till he laughed again, and laughed and cried together, just as a woman does. I tried to be stern with him, as one is to a woman under the circumstances, but it had no effect. Men and women are so different in manifestations of nervous strength or weaknesses. Then when his face grew grave and stern again, I asked him why his mirth, and why at such a time. His reply was in a way very characteristic of him, for it was illogical and forceful and mysterious. He said, "You don't comprehend, friend John. Do not think that I am not sad, though I laugh. See, I have cried even when the laugh did choke me. But no more think that I am all sorry when I cry, for the laugh, he did come just the same. Keep it always with you that laughter who knock at your door and say, 'May I come in?' is not the true laughter. No, he is a king, and he come when and how he like. He ask no person, he choose no time of suitability. He say, 'I am here. Behold an example. I grieve my heart out for that sweet young girl. I give my blood for her, though I am old and worn. I give my time, my skill, my sleep. I let my other sufferers want that she have all. And yet I can laugh at her very grave. Laugh when the clay of the spade of the sexton drop upon her coffin and say, thud, thud, to my heart, till it send back the blood from my cheek. My heart bleed for that poor boy, that dear boy, of so the age of mine own boy, had I been so blessed that he live. And with his hair and his eyes the same. There you know now why I loved him so quick, and make a father heart yearn to him as to no other man. Not even to you, friend John, for we are more level in experiences than father and son. Yet even at such moment King laugh, he come to me and shout and bellow in my ear, 'Here I am! Here I am!' Till the blood come dance back and bring some of the sunshine that he carry with him to my cheek. Oh, friend John, it is a strange world, a sad world, a world full of miseries and woes and troubles, and yet when King Laugh come, he make all of them dance to the tune he play. Bleeding hearts and dry bones of the churchyard, and tears that burn as they fall, all dance together to the music that he make with the smileless mouth of him. And believe me, friend John, that he is good to come, and kind. Ah, we men and women are like ropes drawn tight with the strain that pull us different ways. Then tears come, and like the rain on the ropes, they brace us up until perhaps the strain become too great, and we break. But King Laugh, he come like the sunshine, and he ease off the strain again, and we bear to go on with our labor, what it may be. I did not like to wound him by pretending not to see his idea, but as I did not yet understand this cause of his laughter, I asked him, As he answered me, his face grew stern, and he said in quite a different tone, "Oh, it is a grim irony of it all. This so lovely lady garlanded with flowers, that looked so fair as life, though one by one we wondered if she were truly dead. She lay in that so fine marble house in that lovely churchyard, where rest so many of her kin, laid there with the mother who loved her, and whom she loved, and that sacred bell going toll, 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 so sad and slow, and those holy men, their white garments of an angel, pretending to read books, yet all the time their eyes never on the page, and all of us with bowed head, all for what? She is dead, so is it not?" "Well, for the life of me, Professor," I said, "I can't see anything to laugh at in all that. Why, your explanation makes it harder puzzle than before. But even if the burial service was comic, what about poor Art and his trouble? Why, his heart was simply breaking." "Just so. Said he not that the transfusion of his blood into her veins had made her truly his bride?" "Yes, and it was a sweet and comforting idea for him." "Quite so. But there was a difficulty, friend John. If so then what about the others? Ho ho! Then this so sweet maid is a polyandrist, and me, with my poor wife dead to me, but alive in the church's law, though no wits all gone, even I, who am a faithful husband to this now no wife, am a bigamist." "Oh, I don't see where the joke comes in there either," I said, and I did not feel particularly pleased with him for saying such things. But I got the joke. He laid his hand on my arm and said, "Friend John, forgive me if I pain. I showed not my feeling to others when it would wound, but only to you, my old friend, whom I can trust. If you could have looked into my very heart when I went to laugh, if you could have done so when the laugh arrived, if you could do so now, when King Laugh have packed up his crown and all that is him, he go far away for a long, long time. Maybe you would perhaps pity me the most of all." I was touched by the tenderness of his tone, and asked why. "Because I know." And now we are all scattered, and from any long loneliness we will stir rover's brood. Lucy lies in the tomb of her kin, a lordly death house in a lonely churchyard away from teeming London, where the air is fresh and the sun rises over Hampstead Hill, and where wild flowers grow on their own accord. So I can finish this diary, and God only knows if I shall ever begin another. If I do, or if I even open this one again, it will be to deal with different people and different themes. For here at the end, where the romance of my life is told, ere I go back to wake up to the thread of my life work, I say sadly and without hope, finis. The Westminster Gazette, 25 September. A Hampstead Mystery. The neighborhood of Hampstead is just at present exercised with its series of events which seem to run on lines parallel to those of that known in the writers of headlines as the Kensington Horror, or the Stabbing Woman, or the Woman in Black. During the past 2 or 3 days, several cases have occurred of young children straying from home or neglecting to return from their playing on the heath. In all these cases, the children were too young to give any properly intelligible account for themselves, but the consensus of their excuses is that they had been with a Bloofer Lady. It has always been late in the evening when they have been missed, and on 2 occasions the children have not been found until early the following morning. It is generally supposed that the neighborhood that, as the first child missed gave his reason for being away, that the Bloofer Lady I'd asked him to come for a walk. The others had picked up the phrase and used it on the occasion served. This is more natural as a favorite game of the little ones at present is luring each other away by the wiles. A correspondent writes us that to see some of the tiny tots pretending to be the Bloofer Lady is supremely funny. Some of our caricatures might, he says, take a lesson in the irony of grotesque by comparing the reality and the picture. It is only in accordance with the general principles of human nature that the Bloofer Lady should be a popular role at all these alfresco performances. Our correspondent naively says that Ellen Terry could not be so winningly attractive as some of the grubby-faced little children pretend, and even imagine themselves to be. There is, however, possibly a serious side to the question, for some of these children, indeed all of who have been missed at night, have been slightly torn and wounded in the throat. The wounds seem as such might be made by a rat or a small dog, and although not much importance individually, would tend to show that whatever animal inflicts them has a system or method of its own. The police of the division have been instructed to keep a sharp eye out for straying children, especially when very young and around the Hampstead Heath, as for any stray dog which may be about. The Westminster Gazette, 25 September, extra special. The Hampstead Horror, another child injured by the Bloofer Lady. We have just received intelligence that another child missed last night was only discovered late in the morning after the furze bush at the Shooter's Hill side of the Hampstead Heath, which is, perhaps, less frequently than the other parts. It has the same tiny wound on the throat and has been noticed in other cases. It was terribly weak and looked quite emaciated. It, too, was partially restored, had the common story of being lured away by the Bloofer Lady. Chapter 14, Mina Harker's Journal. 23 September. Jonathan is better after a bad night. I am so glad that he has plenty to work on, for that keeps his mind off the terrible things, and I am rejoiced that he is now not weighed down by the responsibility of his new position. I knew he would be true to himself, and now how proud I am to see my Jonathan rising to the height of his advancement and keeping pace in all the ways with the duties that come upon him. He will be away all day till late, for he said he could not lunch at home. My household work is done, so I shall take this foreign journal and lock myself up in a room and read it. 24 September. I hadn't the heart to write last night. That terrible record of Jonathan's upset me so. Poor dear, how he must have suffered, whether it be true or only imagination. I wonder if there's any truth in it all. Did he get his brain fever and then write all those terrible things? Or had he some cause for it all? I suppose I shall never know, for I dare not open the subject to him. And yet that man we saw yesterday, he seemed quite certain of him. Poor fellow, suppose it was the funeral upset him and set his mind back to some train of thought. He believes it all himself. I remember how on our wedding day he said, "Unless some solemn duty come upon me to go back to the bitter hours, asleep or awake, mad or sane." There seems to be through it all some thread of continuity. The fearful Count was coming to London. If it should be, and he came to London with its teeming millions, there may be a solemn duty. And if it come, we must not shrink from it. I shall be prepared. I shall get my typewriter this very hour and begin transcribing. Then we shall be ready for other eyes if required. And if it be wanted, then, perhaps, if I am ready, poor Jonathan may not be upset, for I can speak for him and never let him be troubled or worried at all with it. If Jonathan ever quite gets over the nervousness, he may want to tell me of it all, and I can ask him questions and find out things, and see how I may comfort him. Letter. Van Helsing to Mrs. Harker. 24th September. Confidence. Dear Madam, I pray you pardon my writing, in that I am a far friend that is sent to you sad news of Miss Lucy Westerner's death. By the kindness of Lord Goldering, I am empowered to read her letters and papers, for I am deeply concerned about certain matters vitally important. In them I found some letters from you, which show how great friends you were, and how you love her. Oh, Madam Mina, by that love, I implore you, help me. It is for others' good that I ask, to redress great wrong, and to lift much of the terrible troubleness that may be more great than you can know. May it be that I see you. You can trust me. I am a friend of Dr. John Stewart and of Lord Godalming. That was Arthur of Miss Lucy. I must keep it private for all presents from all. I should come to Exeter and see you at once if you tell me I am privileged to come, and where and when. I implore your pardon, madam. I have read your letters to poor Lucy. I know how good you are and how your husband suffer. So I pray you, if it may be, enlighten him not, lest it may harm. Again, your pardon, and forgive me. Van Helsing. Telegram, Mrs. Harker to Van Helsing. 25th September. Come today, 10:15 train if you can catch it. Can you see any time you call? Wilhelmina Harker. Mina Harker's Journal, 25th September. I cannot help feeling terribly excited as the time draws near for the visit of Dr. Van Helsing, for somehow I expect it will throw some light on Jonathan's sad experience. And, as he attended dear poor Lucy in her last illness, he can tell me all about her. That is the reason of his coming. It is concerning Lucy and her sleepwalking, and not about Jonathan. Then I shall never know the real truth now. How silly I am. This awful journal gets hold of my imagination and tinges everything with something of its own color. Of course it is about Lucy. The habit came back to the poor dear, and that awful night on the cliff must have made her ill. I had almost forgotten in my own affairs how ill she was afterwards. She must have told him of her sleepwalking adventure on the cliff, and that I knew all about it. Now he wants to tell me himself about it, so that he may understand. I hope I did right in not saying anything of it to Miss Westerner. I should never forgive myself if any act of mine, or even an even negative one, brought harm to poor dear Lucy. I hope, too, Dr. Van Helsing will not blame me. I have had so much trouble and anxiety of late that I feel I cannot bear more at the present. I suppose a cry does us all good sometimes. Clears the air as others' rain does. Perhaps it was reading the journal yesterday that upset me, and then Jonathan went away for a morning to stay away from me for the whole day and night. The first time we have been parted since our marriage. I do hope the dear fellow will take care of himself, and that nothing will occur to upset him. It is 2 o'clock, and the doctor will be here soon now. I shall say nothing of Jonathan's journal unless he asks me, so I am glad I have typewritten my own journal, so that, in case he asks me about Lucy, I can hand it to him, and it will save much questioning. Later. He has come and gone. Oh, what a strange meeting, and how it makes all my head swirl around. I feel like one in a dream. Can it all be possible, or even part of it? If I had not read Jonathan's journal first, I should never have even accepted such a possibility. Poor, poor dear Jonathan. How he must have suffered. Please, the good God, all this may be not upsetting him again. I shall try to save him from it, but it may even be a consolation and a help to him. Terrible though it may be, and awful in its consequences, to know for certain that his eyes and ears and brain did not deceive him, and that all is true. It may be that it was the doubt which haunts him, and then a doubt which is removed no matter which, waking or dreaming, may prove the truth. He will be more satisfied and better able to hear the shock. Dr. Van Helsing must be a good man, as well as a clever one, if he is Arthur's friend and Dr. Stewart's. And if they brought him all the way from Holland to look after Lucy, I feel from having seen him that he is good and kind and of a noble nature. When he comes tomorrow, I shall ask him about Jonathan, and then, please God, all the sorrow and anxiety may lead to a good end. I used to think I would like to practice interviewing. Jonathan's friend on the Exeter News told him that memory was everything in such work, that you must be able to put down exactly almost every word spoken, even if you had to refine some of it afterwards. Here was a rare interview. I shall try to record it verbatim. It was 2:30 when the knock came. I took my courage à deux mains and waited. In a few minutes Mary opened the door and announced, "Dr. Van Helsing." I rose and bowed, and he came forward to me. A man of medium height, strongly built, with his shoulders set back over a broad, deep chest, and a neck well balanced on the trunk of his head as on the neck. The poise of the head strikes me as one as indicative of thought and power. The head is noble, well-sized, broad, and large behind the ears. The face, clean-shaven, shows a hard, square chin, a large, resolute, noble mouth, and a good-sized nose, rather straight, but with quick, sensitive nostrils that seem to broaden as big, bushy eyebrows come down and the mouth tightens. The forehead is broad and fine, rising at first almost straight, then sloping back above two bumps or ridges wide apart, such as a forehead that its reddish hair cannot simply tumble over, but falls naturally back into the sides. Big, dark blue eyes are widely set apart, and are quick to render stern with a man's moods. He said to me, "Miss Harker, is it not?" I bowed assent. "That is Miss Mina Murray," I said again. "It is Miss Mina Murray that I came to see. That was a friend of poor Lucy, the poor dear child, Lucy Westerner. Madam Mina, it is on account that I come for the dead." "Sir," I said, "you could have no better claim on me than that you were a friend and the helper of Lucy Westerner." I held out my hand. He took it and said tenderly, "Oh, Madam Mina, I knew that the friend of that poor lily girl must be good, but I had yet to learn." He finished his speech with a courteous bow. I asked him what it was that he wanted to see me about, and so he once began. "I have read your letters to Miss Lucy. Forgive me, but I had to begin to inquire somewhere, and there were none to ask. I know that you were with her at Whitby. She sometimes kept a diary. You need not look surprised, Madamina. It was begun after you had left, and was made in imitation to you, in that the diary traces inference certain things to a sleepwalking, in which she puts down that you saved her. In great perplexity, then I come to you, and ask you of your so much kindness to tell me of it all that you remember." "I can tell you, I think, Dr. Van Helsing, all about it." "Ah, then you have a good memory for facts, for details. It is not always so with young ladies." "No, doctor, but I wrote it all down all the time. I can show it to you if you like." "Oh, Madam Mina, I will be grateful. You will do me such favor." I suppose I could not resist the temptation of mystifying him a bit. I suppose it is some of the taste of the original apple that remains still in our mouths. So I handed him the shorthand diary. He took it with a grateful bow and said, "May I read it?" "If you wish," I answered demurely as I could. He opened it, and for an instant his face fell. Then he stood up and bowed. "Oh, you are a clever woman," he said. "I wrong you, Jonathan. It's a good man and such thankfulness. But see, his wife have all the good things, and will you not so much honor me as to help me to read it for me? Alas, I know not the shorthand." By this time the little joke was over, and I was almost ashamed, so I took the typewritten copy from my work basket and handed it to him. "Forgive me," I said. "I could not help it. But I had been thinking that it was of dear Lucy that you wished to ask, and so that you might not have wait, not on my account. But because I know your time must be precious, I have written it out untypewritten for you." He took it, and his eyes glistened. "You are so good," he said. "And may I read it now? I may want to ask you some things when I have read." "By all means," I said. "Read it over whilst I order lunch, and then you can ask me questions whilst we eat." He bowed and settled himself down in a chair with his back to the light, and became absorbed in the papers, whilst I went to see after lunch, chiefly the order that he might not be disturbed. When I came back, I found him walking hurriedly up and down the room, his face all ablaze with excitement. He rushed up to me and took me by both hands. "Oh, Madam Mina," he said, "how can I say what I owe you? This paper is as sunshine. It opens the gate to me. I am dazed, I am dazzled with such lights, yet clouds roll in right behind the light every time. But that you do not, cannot comprehend. But I am grateful to you, you so clever woman, madam." He said this very solemnly. "If ever Abraham Van Helsing can do anything for you or yours, I trust you will let me know. It will be pleasure and delight if I may serve you as a friend. As a friend. But all I have ever learned, all I can ever do, shall be for you and those you love. There were darkness in life, and there are lights. You are such one of those lights. You will have a happy life, a good life, and your husband will be blessed in you." "But, doctor, you praise me too much, and you do not know me." "Not know you? I, who am old, and who have studied all life of men and women, I, who have made my specialty the brain, and all that belongs to him, and all that follow from him. And I have read your diary, that you have so goodly written for me, which breathes out truth in every line. I, who have read your sweet letter to poor Lucy of your marriage and of trust, not know you? Ah, Madam Mina, good women tell all their lives, and by day and by hour and by minute, such things that angels can read, and we men who wish to know have in us something of angels' eyes. Your husband is noble nature, and you are noble too, for you trust, and trust cannot be there where mean is nature. And your husband, tell me of him. Is he quite well? Is all that fever gone? And is he strong and hearty?" I saw here an opening to ask him about Jonathan, so I said, "He was almost recovered, but he has been greatly upset by Mr. Hawkins' death." He interrupted. "Ah, yes, I know. I have read your last two letters." I went on. "I suppose this upset him, for when you were in town on Thursday he had a sort of shock." "A shock? And after brain fever so soon? That was not good. What kind of shock was it?" "He thought he saw someone he recalled something terrible, something which led to his brain fever." And here the whole thing seemed to overwhelm me in a rush. The pity for Jonathan, the horror for which he experienced, the whole fearful mystery of his diary, and the fear that he has been brooding over ever since, all came in a tumult. I suppose I was hysterical, for I threw myself on my knees and held up my hands to him, and implored him to make my husband well again. He took my hands and raised me up, and made me sit on the sofa, sat by me. He held my hands in his, and said to me with, oh, such infinite sweetness, "My life is a barren and lonely one, and so full of work that I have not had much time for friendships. But since I have been summoned to here by my friend John Seward, I have known so many good people and seen such nobility that I feel more than ever, and it has grown with my advancing years and loneliness of my life. Believe me, then, that I come here of full respect for you, and you have given me hope. Hope! Not in that I am seeking of, but that there are good women still left in this life to make me happy. Good women whose lives and whose truths may make. Good lesson for the children that are to be. I am glad that I may be here for some use of you. If for your husband suffer, he suffer within the range of my study and experience. I promise you that I will gladly do all for him that I can, all to make his life strong and manly, and your life a happy one. Now you must eat. You are overwrought and perhaps over-anxious. Husband Jonathan would not like to see you so pale. What he like not where he love, it is not his good. Therefore, for his sake, you must eat and smile. You have told me all about Lucy, and so now we shall not speak of its less distress. I shall stay in Exeter tonight, for I want to think much over what you have told me, and when I have thought it, I will ask you questions, if I may. And then, too, you will tell me of husband Jonathan's trouble so far as you can, but not yet. You must eat now. Afterwards you shall tell me all. After lunch we went back to the drawing-room. He said to me, "And now tell me all about him." When I came to speaking to this great learned man, I began to fear that he would think me a weak fool, and Jonathan a madman. That journal is so strange, and I hesitated to go on. But he was so sweet and kind, and he had promised to help, and I trusted him. So I said, "Dr. Van Helsing, what I have to tell you is so queer that you must not laugh at me or my husband. I have been since yesterday in a sort of fever of doubt. You must be kind to me and not think me foolish that I have even half believed some of the very strange things." He assured me by his manner as well as his words when he said, "Oh, my dear, if you only knew how strange the matter regarding which I am here, it is you who would laugh. I have learned not to think little of anyone's belief, no matter how strange it be. I have tried to keep an open mind, and it is not the ordinary thing of life that should close it, but the strange things, the extraordinary things, the things that make one doubt if they be mad or sane." Thank you 1,000 times. You have taken a weight off my mind. If you will let me, I shall give you a paper to read. It is long, but I have typewritten it out. It will tell you the trouble and Jonathan's. It is a copy of his journal when abroad, and all that happened. I dare not say anything of it. You will read it for yourself and judge. And then, when I see you, perhaps, you will be very kind and tell me what you think." "I promise," he said, as I gave him the papers. "I shall in the morning, as soon as I can, come to see you and your husband, if I may." "Jonathan will be here 11:30, and you must come to lunch with us, and see him then. You could catch a quick 3:34 train, which will leave you at Paddington for 8. You are surprised at my knowledge of the trains and, but he knows not that I have made up all the trains to and from Exeter, so that I may help Jonathan in case he is in a hurry. So he took the papers with him and went away, and I sit here thinking I don't know what." Letter by hand. Van Helsing to Mrs. Harker. 25th September, 6 o'clock. Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. You may sleep without doubt. Strange and terrible it is true. I will pledge my life on it. It may be worse for others, but for him and you there is no dread.
He is a noble fellow, and let me tell you from the experience of men that one who would do as he did is going down the wall into that room, and going a second time, is not one to be injured by permanence by a shock. His brain and his heart are all right. This I swear. Before I have even seen him, so be at rest. I shall much have to ask him of other things. I am blessed that today I come to see you, for I have learnt at once so much that again I am dazzled more than ever, and I must think. Yours, the most faithful, Abraham Van Helsing.
Letter, Mrs. Harker to Van Helsing. 25th September, 6:30 p.m.
My dear Dr. Van Helsing, 1,000 thanks for your kind letter, which has taken a great weight off my mind. And yet, if it be true, what terrible things there are in the world, and what an awful thing if that man, the monster, be really in London. I fear to think. I have this moment, whilst writing, had a wire from Jonathan saying that he leaves by the 6:25 tonight from Lunsington, and he will be here at 10:18, so that I shall have no fear tonight. Will you, therefore, instead of lunching with us, please come to breakfast at 8 o'clock, if this be not too early for you? You can get away, if you are in a hurry, by the 10:30 train, which will bring you to Paddington by 2:35. Do not answer this. I shall take it that, if I do not hear, you will come to breakfast. Believe me, your faithful and grateful friend, Mina Harker.
Something stuck in my teeth. Anyway. Jonathan Harker's diary. 26th September. I thought never to write in this diary again, but this time has come. When I got home last night, Mina had supper ready, and when we had supped, she told me of Van Helsing's visit, and of her having given him 2 diaries copied out, and of how anxious she had been about me. She showed me in the doctor's letter that all I wrote down was true. It seems to have made me a new man. It was the doubt as to the reality of the whole thing that had knocked me over. I felt impotent and in the dark and distrustful. But now that I know, I am not afraid, even of the Count. He has succeeded after all, then, in his design to getting to London, and it is he that I saw. Has he got younger, and how? Van Helsing is the man to unmask him and hunt him out, if he is anything like what Vina says. We sat late and talked it over. Mina is dressing, and I shall call the hotel at a few times to bring him over. He was, I think, surprised to see me. When I came into the room where he was and introduced myself, he took me by the shoulder and turned my face around to the light, and said, after a sharp scrutiny,
But Madame Mina told me you were ill, that you had a shock.
It was so funny to hear my wife called Madame Mina by this kindly, strong-faced old man. I smiled and I said, I was ill, and I have had a shock, but you have cured me already.
And how?
By your letter to Mina last night. I was in doubt, and then everything took a hue of unreality, and I did not know what to trust, even the evidence of my own senses. Not knowing what to trust, I did not know what to do, and so only had to keep working in what I had hitherto the groove of my life. The groove ceased to avail me, and I mistrusted myself. Doctor, you don't know what it is to doubt everything, even yourself. You don't. You couldn't even with eyebrows like yours. He seemed pleased and laughed as he said, Ah, so you're a physiognomist. I learn more here at each hour. I am with such pleasure coming to your breakfast, and, sir, you will pardon praise of an old man. You are blessed in your wife. I would listen to go on praising Mina for a day, so I simply nodded and stood silent.
She is a God's woman fashioned by his own hand to show us men and other women that there is a heaven where we can enter, and that its light can be here on earth. So true, so sweet, so noble, so little an egotist. And that, let me tell you, is much in an age so skeptical and selfish. And you, sir, I have read all the letters to poor Miss Lucy, and some of them speak of you. So I know you since some days from the knowing of the others, but I have seen your true self since last night. You will give me your hand, will you not? Let us be friends for all our lives.
We shook hands, and he was so earnest and so kind that it made me quite chalky.
And now, he said, may I ask you for some more help? I have a great task to do, and at the beginning it is to know. You can help me here. Can you tell me what wins before you're going to Transylvania? Later on I may ask more help, and of a different kind, but at first this will do.
Look here, sir, I said. What does that have to do concern the Count?
It does, he said solemnly.
Then I am with your heart and soul. As you go by the 10:30 train, you will not have time to read them, but I shall get the bundle of papers. You can take them with you and read them on the train. After breakfast, I saw him to the station. When we were parting, he said,
Perhaps you will come to town if I send to you, and take Madamina too.
We shall both come when you will, I said. I had got him the morning papers and the London papers of the previous night, and while we were talking at the carriage window, waiting for the train to start, he was turning them over. His eyes suddenly seemed to catch something in one of them, the Westminster Gazette. I knew it by the cover, and he grew quite white. He read something intently, groaning to himself.
Mein Gott, so soon, so soon.
I did not think he remembered me at the moment. Just then the whistle blew and the train moved off. This recalled him to himself, and he leaned out of the window and waved his hand, calling out,
Love to Madamina! I shall write so soon as I ever can.
Dr. Seward's Diary, 26th September. Truly as there's no such thing as finality. Not a week since I said finis, and yet here I am starting fresh again, or rather going on the same record. Until this afternoon I had no cause to think of what was done. Renfield had become, to all intents, as sane as he ever was. He was already ahead with his fly business, and had just started in the spider line also. So he had not been any trouble to me. I had a letter from Arthur, written on Sunday. From it I gather that he was bearing up wonderfully. Quincy Morris is with him, and that is much of a help, for he himself is a bubbling well of good spirits. Quincy wrote me on a line too, and from him I hear that Arthur is beginning to recover something of his old buoyancy. So, as to them, all their mind is rest. As for myself, I was settling down from my work with the enthusiasm which I used to have for it, so that I might fairly have said that the wound which poor Lucy left on me was becoming cicatrized. Everything is, however, now reopened, and what is there to be, the end of God only knows. I have an idea that Van Helsing thinks he knows too, but he will only let out enough at a time to whet curiosity. He went to Exeter yesterday and stayed there all night. Today he came back and almost bounded into the room about 5:30 and thrust last night's Westminster Gazette in my hand.
What do you think?
He asked as he stood back and folded his arms. I looked over the paper, for I really did not know what he meant, but he took it from me and pointed at the paragraph about children being decoyed at the Hampstead. It did not convey much to me until I reached the passage where it described small puncture wounds on their throats. The idea struck me, and I looked up. Well, he said, it's like poor Lucy's.
And what do you make of it?
Simply that there is some case in common. Whatever it was that injured her injured them. I did not quite understand his answer.
That is true indirectly, but not directly.
How do you mean, Professor? I asked. I was a little inclined to take his seriousness lightly, for after all, 4 days of rest and freedom from burning, harrowing anxiety, does not help restore one's spirits. But when I saw his face, it sobered me. Never, even in the midst of our despair about poor Lucy, had he looked more stern. Tell me, I said. I can hazard no opinion. I do not know what to think. I have no data on which to found a conjecture.
Do you mean to tell me, friend John, that you have no suspicion as to what poor Lucy died of? Not of the after hints, not only by events, but by me?
Of nervousness, prostration, following great loss and waste of blood.
And how the blood lost or waste? I shook my head. He stepped over and sat down beside me. You are a clever man, friend John. You reason well, and your wit is bold. But you are too prejudiced. You do not let your eyes see nor your ears hear, and that which is outside your daily life is not of account to you. Do you not think that there are things which you cannot understand, and yet which are, that some people see things that others cannot? But there are things old and new which must not be contemplated by men's eyes, because they know, or they think they know, some things which other men have told them. It is the fault of our science that it wants to explain all, and if it not explain, then it says there's nothing to explain. But yet we see around us every day the growth of new beliefs, which think themselves new, and which are yet but the old which pretend to be young, like the fine ladies of the opera. I suppose now you do not believe in corporeal transference, no? Nor in materialism? No. Nor in astral bodies? No. Not in the reading of thought? No. Nor in hypnotism?
Yes, I said. Charcot has proved that very well. He smiled as he went on.
Then you are satisfied as to it, yes? And of course then you understand how to act, and can follow the mind of the great Charcot, alas that he is no more, into the very soul of the patient that he influenced. No? Then, friend John, am I to take it that you simply accept fact, and are satisfied to let the premise of conclusion to be blank? No? Then tell me, for I am a student of the brain, how you accept that hypnotism and reject the thought-reading. Let me tell you, my friend, that there are things done today in electrical science which would have been deemed only unholy by the very men who discovered electricity, who would themselves not so long before have been burned as wizards. There are always mysteries in life. Was it not that Methuselah lived 900 years, and old Parr 169, and yet poor Lucy, with 4 men's blood in her poor veins, could not live even one day? For she had lived one more day, we could have saved her. But you know not all the mysteries of life and death. Do you know altogether the comparative anatomy, and say wherefore the qualities of brutes are in some men and not in others? Can you tell me why, when other spiders die small and soon, that one great spider lived for centuries in an old tower of the old Spanish church, and grew till, on descending, he could drink the oil of all the church lamps? Can you tell me why in the Pampas, and elsewhere, there are bats that come at night and open the veins of cattle and horses, and suck dry their veins? How in some islands of the western seas there are bats which hang on trees all day, that those who have seen describe like giant nuts, or pods, and that when the sailors sleep on deck, because that it's hot, flit down on them, and then in the morning were found dead. Men. White, as even Miss Lucy was.
Good God, Professor, I said, starting up. You mean to tell me that Lucy was bitten by such a bat, and that such a thing is here in London in the 19th century? He waved his hand for silence and went on.
Can you tell me why the tortoise lives longer than generations of men? Why the elephant goes on and on till he have dynasties? And why the parrot never die only of bites of cat and dog or other complaint? Can you tell me why men believe in all ages and places that there are few who live on always if they be permit, that there are men and women who cannot die? We all know, because science has vouched for the fact, that there be toads shut up in rocks for thousands of years, shut in so small a hole that only hold him since the youth of his world. Can you tell me how the Indian facker can make himself die and have been buried, and his grave sealed and corn left sowed on it, and the corn reaped and cut down, and sown and reaped and cut again, and then men come and take away the unbroken seal that lie there in the Indian facker, not dead, but that rise up and walk amongst them as before?
Here I interrupted him. I was getting bewildered. He so crowded on my mind his list of nature's eccentricities and possible impossibilities that my imagination was getting fired. I had a dim idea that he was teaching me some lesson, as long ago he used to do so in his study in Amsterdam. But he used to tell me the thing, so that I could have the object of thought in mind all the time. But now I was without his help, yet I wanted to follow him, so I said, Professor, that may be your pet student again. Tell me the thesis so that I may apply your knowledge as you go on. At present I am going in my mind from point to point as a madman, and not a sane one. Follows an idea. I feel like a novice blundering through a bog in the mist, jumping from tussock to another in the mere blind effort to move on without knowing where I'm going.
That is a good image, he said. Well, I shall tell you. My thesis is this. I want you to believe.
To believe what?
To believe in things you cannot. Let me illustrate. I heard once of an American who defined faith, that which enables us to believe things which we know to be untrue. For one, I follow that man. He meant that we shall have an open mind, and not let a little bit of truth check the rush of a big truth, like a small rock does a railway truck. We get the small truth first. Good. We keep him. We value him. But all the same, we must not let him think himself all the truth in the universe.
Then you want me not to let some previous conjunction injure the reciprocity of my mind with regard to some strange matter? To read your lessons right.
Ah, you are my favorite pupil still. It is worth to teach you. Now that you are willing to understand, you have taken the first step to understand. You think, then, that those small holes in the children's throats were made by the same that made the hole in Miss Lucy?
I suppose so. He stood up and said solemnly,
Then you are wrong. Oh, would it be so, but alas, it is worse, far worse.
In God's name, Professor Van Helsing, what do you mean? I cried. He threw himself with a despairing gesture into a chair and placed his elbows on the side table, covering his face with his hands as he spoke.
They were made by Miss Lucy.
Bum, bum, bum. Chapter 15. No, 10 pages. I'll take one. Chapter 15. Dr. Seward's Diary, continued. For a while, sheer anger mastered me. It was as if he had, during her life, struck Lucy in the face. I smote the table hard and rose up as I said to him, Dr. Van Helsing, are you mad? He raised his head and looked at me, and somehow the tenderness of his face calmed me at once.
Would I were, he said. Madness were easy to bear compared with truth like this. Oh, my friend, why, think you, did I go so far around? Why take so long to tell you a simple thing? Was it because I hate you and have hated you all my life? Was it because I wished to give you pain? Was it that I wanted, now so late, revenge for that time when you saved my life, and from fearful death? Oh, no.
Forgive me, I said. He went on.
My friend, it is because I wished to be gentle in the breaking to you, for I know that you have loved that so sweet lady. But even yet, I do not expect you to believe. It is so hard to accept at once any abstract truth that we may doubt such to be possible when we have always believed the no of it. It is more hard to accept so sad a concrete truth as of which son is as such as Miss Lucy. Together I go to prove it. Dare you come with me?
This staggered me. A man does not like to prove such a truth. Byron excepted from the category of jealousy. And prove the truth I most abhorred. He saw my hesitation and spoke.
The logic is simple. No madman's logic this time. Jumping from tussock to tussock in a misty fog. If it be not true, then proof will be relief. At worst, it will not harm. If it be true, there's a dread. Yet very dread should help my cause, for 'tis some need of relief. Come, I tell you what I propose first. That we go off now and see the child in the hospital. Dr. Vincent of the North Hospital, where the papers say the child is. It's a friend of mine. And I think of yours since you are in class at Amsterdam. He will let 2 scientists see his case. If not, he will let 2 friends. We shall tell him nothing, but only that we wish to learn. And then,
he took a key from his pocket. And held it up.
And then we spend the night, you and I, in the churchyard where Lucy lies. This is the key that locked the tomb. I had it from the coffin man to give to Arthur.
My heart sank within me, for I felt that there was some fearful ordeal before us. I could do nothing, however, so I plucked up the heart and said that we had better hasten, as the afternoon was passing. We found the child awake. It had had its sleep and taken some food, and altogether was going on well. Dr. Vincent took the bandage from his throat and showed us the punctures. There was no mistaking the similarity to those which we had seen on Lucy's throat. They were smaller, and the edges looked fresher. That was all. We asked Vincent to what he attributed them, and he replied that it must have been the bite of some animal, perhaps a rat, but for his own part he was inclined to think that it was one of the bats which were so numerous in the northern heights of London. Out of so many harmless ones, he said, there may be some wild specimen from the south of a more malignant species. Some sailor may have brought one home, and it managed to escape. Or even the zoological gardens, as a young one might have gotten loose, or one that bred there from a vampire. These things do occur, you know. Only 10 days ago a wolf got out, and was, I believe, traced up in this direction. For a week after, the children were playing nothing but Red Riding Hood on the heath and in every alley in this place until the Bloofer Lady scare came along, since when it was quite a go a time for them. Even this poor little mite. He woke up today and asked the nurse if I might go away. Said some When she asked him why he wanted to go, he said he wanted to play with the Bloofer Lady.
I hope, said Van Helsing, that when you are sending the child home you will caution its parents to keep strict watch over it. These fancies to stray are most dangerous, and if the child were to remain out another night, it would probably be fatal. But in any case, suppose you will not let it away for some days.
Certainly not. Not for a week at least. Longer if the wound is not healed. Our visit to the hospital took more time than we had reckoned on, and the sun had dipped before we came out. When Van Helsing came out, he saw how dark it was. Said,
There is no hurry. It is more late than I thought. Come, let us seek somewhere that we may eat. Then we shall go on our way.
We dined at Jack Straw Castle, along with a little crowd of bicyclists and others who were generally noisy. At 10 o'clock we started out for the inn. It was then very dark, and the scattered lamps made the darkness greater when we were once outside their individual radius. The professor had evidently noted the road that we were on, for he went unhesitatingly. But as for me, I was in quite a mix-up as to the locality. As we went further, we met fewer and fewer people, till at last we were somewhat surprised when we met around the patrol of the horse police, going their usual suburban round. At last we reached the wall of the churchyard, which we climbed over. With some little difficulty, for it was very dark, and the whole place seemed so strange to us. We found the Westerina tomb. The professor took the key and opened the creaky door, and standing back politely, but quite unconsciously, motioned me to precede him. There was a delicious irony in the offer, and the courtliness of giving preference on such a ghastly occasion. My companion followed me quickly and cautiously drew the door in, after carefully asserting that the lock was a falling and not a spring one. In the latter case, we should have been in a bad plight. Then he fumbled in his bag, and taking out a matchbox and a piece of candle, proceeded to make a light. The tomb in the daytime, and when wreathed with fresh flowers, had looked grim and gruesome enough. But now, some days afterwards, when the flowers hung lank and dead, their whites turning to rust and their greens to browns, when the spider and the beetle had resumed their accustomed dominance, and when time disclosed stone and dust-encrusted mortar, and rusty, dank iron and tarnished brass, and clouded silver plating gave back the feeble glimmer of the candle. The effect was more miserable and sordid than could have been imagined. It conveyed irresistibly that the idea of life, animal life, was not the only thing that could pass away. Van Helsing went about his work systematically, holding his candle so that he could read the coffin plates, and so holding it that the sperm dropped in white patches which congealed as they touched the metal. He made assurance of Lucy's coffin, another search in his bag, and he took out a turn-screw. "What are you going to do?" I asked.
"To open the coffin. You shall yet be convinced."
Straight away he began to take out the screws, and finally lifted off the lid, showing the casing of lead beneath. The sight was almost too much for me. It seemed to be as much an affront to the dead as it would have been had stripped off her clothing in her sleep whilst living. I actually took hold of his hand to stop him. He only said, "You shall see." And again, fumbling in his bag, he took out a tiny fret saw. Striking the turn-screw through the lead with a swift downward stab, he made me wince. He made a small hole, which is, however, big enough to admit the point of the saw. I had expected a rush of gas from a week-old corpse, when we doctors who have had to study our dangers have to become accustomed to such things, and I drew back towards the door. But the professor never stopped for a moment. He sawed down a couple of feet, taking one side of the lead coffin, and then across, and down the other side, taking the edge of the large flange, which he bent backwards towards the foot of the coffin. Holding up the candle into the aperture, he motioned me to look. I drew near and looked. The coffin was empty. It was certainly a surprise to me, and gave me a considerable shock, but Van Helsing was unmoved. He was now more sure than ever of his ground, and so emboldened to proceed in his task.
"Are you satisfied now, friend John?" he asked.
I felt all the dogged argumentiveness of my nature wake within me, and I answered him. I am satisfied that Lucy's body is not in the coffin, but that only proves one thing.
"And what is that, friend John?"
That is not here.
"That is good logic," he said, "so far as it goes. But how do you know? How can you account for it not being here?"
Perhaps a body snatcher, I suggested. Some of the Undertaker's people may have stolen it. I felt that I was speaking folly, and yet it was the only real cause which I could suggest. The professor sighed.
"Ah, well," he said, "we must have more proof. Come with me."
He put on the coffin lid again, gathering up all his things and placing them in the bag, blew out the light, and placed a candle also in the bag. We opened the door and went out. Behind us he closed the door and locked it. He handed me the key, saying,
"Will you keep it? You had better be assured."
I laughed. It was not a very cheerful laugh, I am bound to say, as I motioned him to keep it. Key is nothing, I said. There may be duplicates, and anyhow it is not difficult to pick a lock of that kind. He said nothing, but put the key in his pocket. Then he told me to watch at one side of the churchyard, whilst he would watch the other. I took up my place behind a yew tree, and I saw his figure move until the intervening headstones and trees hid it from my sight. It was a lonely vigil. Just after I had taken my place, I heard the distant clock strike 12, and in time came 1 and 2. I was chilled and unnerved, and angry with the professor for taking me on such an errand, and with myself for coming. I was too cold and too sleepy, and too keenly observant, and not sleepy enough to betray my trust. So altogether had a dreary, miserable time. Suddenly I turned around. I thought I saw something like a white streak moving between 2 dark yew trees on the side of the churchyard farthest from the tomb. At the same time a dark mass moved from the professor's side of the ground and hurriedly went towards it. Then I too moved, but I had to go round headstones and railed off tombs, and stumbled over graves. The sky was overcast, and somewhere far off an early cock crew. A little way off, beyond the line of scattered juniper trees which marked the pathway to the church, a white, dim figure flitted in the direction of the tomb. The tomb itself was hidden by trees, and I could not see where the figure disappeared. I heard the rustle of actual movement where I had first seen the white figure, and coming over I found the professor holding his arms to a tiny child. When he saw me, he held it out to me and said,
"Are you satisfied now?"
"No," I said in a way that I felt aggressive.
"Do you not see the child?"
"Yes, it is a child, but who brought it here? And is it wounded?" I asked.
"We shall see,"
said the professor, and with one impulse we took our way to the churchyard, carrying the sleeping child. When we had got a little distance away, we went to a clump of trees and struck a match and looked at the child's throat. It was without a scratch or scar of any kind. "Was I right?" I asked triumphantly.
"We were just in time," said the professor thankfully.
We had now to decide that we were to do with the child, and so consulted about it. If we were to take it to a police station, we should have to give some account of our movements during the night, At least we should have to make some statement as to how we came to find the child. So finally we decided that we would take it to the heath, and when we heard policemen coming, would leave it where he could not fail to find it. We would then seek our way home as quickly as we could. All fell out well, and at the edge of Hampstead Heath we heard a policeman's heavy tramp, and laying the child on the pathway we waited and watched until he saw it, and as he flashed his lantern to and fro. We heard his exclamation of astonishment, and then we went away silently. By good chance we got a cab near the Spaniards and drove to town. I cannot sleep, so I make this entry, but I must try to get a few hours sleep, as Van Helsing is to call me at noon. He insists that I shall go with him on another expedition. 27th September. It was 2 o'clock when we found the suitable opportunity for our attempt. The funeral held at noon was all completed, and the last stragglers and the mourners had taken themselves lazily away. When looking carefully from behind a clump of elder trees, we saw the sexton lock the gate after him. We knew that we were safe till morning, did we desire it. But the professor told me that we should not want more than an hour at most. Again I felt that horrid sense of reality of things, in which any effort of imagination seemed out of place, and I realized distinctly the perils of which we were incurring in our unhallowed work. Besides, I felt it was also useless. Outrageous as it was to open a leaden coffin to see if a woman dead nearly a week were really dead, it now seemed like a height of folly to open the tomb again, when we knew, from the evidence of our own eyesight, that the coffin was empty. I shrugged my shoulders, however, and rested silent, for Van Helsing had a way of going in its own road, no matter who remonstrated. He took the key, opened the vault, and again courteously motioned me to proceed. The place was not so gruesome as last night, but oh, how unutterably mean-looking when the sunshine streamed in. Van Helsing walked over to Lucy's coffin, and I followed. He bent over and again forced back the laden flange, and then a shock of surprise and dismay shot through me. There lay Lucy, seemingly just as she had been the night before her funeral. She was, if possible, more radiantly beautiful than ever, and I could not believe that she was dead. Her lips were red, nay, redder than they were before, and on the cheeks was a delicate bloom. "Is this a juggle?" I said to him. "Are you convinced now?" said the professor in response, and as he spoke he put over his hand, in a way that made me shudder, pulled back the dead lips, and showed the white teeth. "See," he went on, "see, they are even sharper than before. With this and this," and he touched one of the canine teeth, and that below it, "the little children were bitten. Are you of belief now, friend John?" Once more argumentative hostility woke within me. I could not accept that such an overwhelming idea as he suggested. So, with an attempt to argue, of which I was even at the moment ashamed, I said, "She may have been placed here since last night." "Indeed, that is so. But by whom?" "I do not know. Someone has done it." "And yet she has been dead a week. Most people in that time would not look so." I had no answer for this, so was silent. Van Helsing did not seem to notice my silence, at any rate. He showed neither chagrin nor triumph. He was looking intently at the face of a dead woman, raising the eyelids and looking at the eyes, and once more opening the lips and examining the teeth. Then he turned to me and said, "Here is the one thing which is different from all recorded. Here is some dual life that is not as common. She was bitten by a vampire when she was in a trance, sleepwalking. Oh, you start. You do not know that, friend John, but you shall know it all later. And in trance could he best come to take more blood. In trance she died,
and in trance she is undead too. So it is that she differ from all the other. Usually when the undead sleep at home,
He spoke as he made a comprehensive sweep of his arm to designate what a vampire was home.
their face show what they are. It is so sweet that was, when she not undead, she go back to the nothings of the common dead. There is no malign here, see, and so it make hard that I must kill her in her sleep.
This turned my blood cold, and it began to dawn upon me that I was accepting Van Helsing's theories. But if she were really dead, what was their terror in the idea of killing her? He looked up at me, and evidently saw the change in my face, for he said almost joyously,
Ah, you believe me now.
I answered, do not press me too hard all at once. I am willing to accept. How will you do this bloody work?
I shall cut off her head and fill her mouth with garlic, and I shall drive a stake through her body.
It made me shudder to think of so mutilating the body of the woman whom I loved. And yet the feeling was not so strong as I had expected. I was, in fact, beginning to shudder at the presence of this thing, this undead, as Van Helsing called it, and to loathe it. Is it possible that love is all subjective or all objective? I waited a considerable time for Van Helsing to begin, but he stood as if wrapped in thought. Presently he closed the catch to the bag with a snap and said,
I have been thinking, and have made up my mind as to what is best. If I did simply follow my inclining, I would do so now. At this moment, what is to be done? But there are other things to follow, and things that are 1,000 times more difficult, and them that we do not know. This is simple. She has yet no life taken, though that is of time, and to act now would be to take danger from her over ever. But then we may have to want Arthur, and how shall we tell him of this? If you, who saw the wounds on Lucy's throat, and saw the wounds so similar on the child at the hospital, if you, who saw the coffin empty last night, and full today with a woman who did not change only to be more rose and more beautiful in a whole week after she died, if you know this, and know of the white figure last night that brought the child to the great churchyard, and yet your own senses you do not believe, how, then, can I expect Arthur, who know none of these, to believe? He doubted me when I took him from her kiss when she was dying. I know he has forgiven me because of some mistaken idea. I have done things that prevent him from saying goodbye as he ought, and he may think that in some more mistaken idea this woman was buried alive, and that in most mistake of all we have killed her. He will then argue back that it is we, mistaken ones, that have killed her by our ideas, and so he will much unhappy always. Yet he never can be sure, and that is the worst of all. And he still sometimes thinks that she loved was buried alive, and that will paint his dreams with horrors of what she must have suffered. And again he will think that we may be right, and that his so beloved was, after all, an undead. No, I told him once, and since I have then learned much. Now, since I know it is all true, 100,000 times more do I know that he must pass through the bitter waves to reach the sweet. He, poor fellow, must have 1 hour that will make the very face of heaven grow back with him. Then he can act for good all around and send him peace. My mind is made up. Let us go. You return home for tonight to your asylum, and see that all is well. As for me, I shall spend the night here in the churchyard in my own way. Tomorrow night You will come to me at the Berkeley Hotel at 10 of the clock. I shall send for Arthur to come too, and also that so fine young man of America that gave his blood. Later we will all have to work to do. I come with you so far as Piccadilly and dine there, for I must be back here before the sun sets. So we locked
So we locked the tomb and came away, and got over the wall of the churchyard, which was not so much a task as we drove back to Piccadilly. Note left by Van Helsing by his portman, Berkeley Hotel. Directed to John Stewart, M.D. Not delivered. 27th September.
Friend John. I write in case anything should happen. I go alone to watch in the churchyard. It pleases me that the undead, Miss Lucy, shall not leave tonight, so that on the morrow night she may be more eager. Therefore I shall fix some things she will not like, garlic and a crucifix, and so seal up the door of the tomb. She is young as undead, and will heed. Moreover, these are only to prevent her coming out. They may not prevail on her wanting to get in. For then the undead is desperate, and must find a line of least resistance. Whatsoever it may be, I shall be at hand all the nights from sunset to sunrise. And if there be aught that may be learned, I shall learn it. For Miss Lucy, or from her, I have no fear. But that other to whom is there that she is undead, he have now the power to seek her tomb and find shelter. He is cunning, as I know from Mr. Jonathan, and from the way that all along he have fooled us when we played with us for Miss Lucy's life, and we lost. In many ways the undead are strong. He have always the strength in his hand of 20 men. Even we 4 who gave our strength to Miss Lucy, it is also all to him. Besides, he can summon this wolf, and I know not what. So if it be that he come thither on the nights, he shall find me, but none other shall until it be too late. But it may be that he will not attempt the place. There is no reason why he should. His hunting ground is more full of game than the churchyard where the undead women sleep, and one old man watch. Therefore I write in this case. Take the papers that are his, the diaries of Harker, and the rest, and read them. And then find this great undead, and cut off his head, and burn his heart, or drive a stake through it, so that the world may rest from him. If it be so, farewell, Van Helsing.
Dr. Stewart's Diary, 28th September. It is wonderful what a good night's sleep will do for one. Yesterday I was almost willing to accept Van Helsing's monstrous ideas, but now they seem to start out lurid before me as outrage as one common sense. I have no doubt that he believes it all. I wonder if his mind can have become in any way unhinged. Surely there must be some rational explanation to all these mysterious things. Is it possible that the professor can have done it himself? He is so abnormally clever that if he went off his head he could carry out his intent with regard to some fixed idea in a wonderful way. I am loath to think it, and indeed it would be almost as great as a marvel as the other to find that Van Helsing was mad. But anyhow, I shall watch him carefully. I may get some light on the mystery. 29th September, morning. Last night, at a little before 10 o'clock, Arthur and Quincy came to Van Helsing's room. He told us all that he wanted to do, but especially addressing himself to Arthur, as if all our wills were centered on his. He began by saying that he hoped we could all come with him too, for, he said, there is a grave duty to be done there. You were doubtless surprised by my letter. The query was directly addressed to Lord Godalming. It was rather upset me a bit. There has been such trouble around my house of late that I could do without any more. I have been curious, too, as to what you mean. Quincy and I talked it over, but the more we talked, the more puzzled we got. Till now I can say for myself that I'm about up a tree as to any meaning about it. Me too, said Quincy Morris laconically.
Oh,
Said the professor.
then you are nearer the beginning, both of you, than friend John here, who has to go a long way back before he can even get so far as to begin.
It was evident that he recognized any return to my old doubting frame of mind without saying a word. Then, turning the other two, the way, he said, intense gravity.
I want your permission to go to do what I think is good this night. It is, I know, much to ask, and when you know what it is I proposed to do, you will know, and only then, how much. Therefore, may I ask that you promise me in the dark, so that afterwards, though you may be angry with me for a time, I must not disguise for myself the possibility that, such may be, you shall not blame yourselves for anything.
That's frank anyhow, broke in Quincy. I'll answer for the professor, and I don't quite see the drift, but I swear he's honest, and that's good enough for me.
I thank you, sir, said Van Helsing proudly. I have done myself the honor of counting you as a trusted friend, and such an endorsement is very dear to me.
He held out a hand, which Quincy took. Then Arthur spoke out. Dr. Van Helsing, I don't quite like to buy a pig in a poke, as they say in Scotland. And if it be anything in which my honor as a gentleman or my faith as a Christian is concerned, I cannot make such a promise. If you can assure me that what you intend to do does not violate either of these two, then I will give my consent at once, though for the life of me I cannot understand what you are driving at.
I accept your limitation, said Van Helsing, and all I ask of you is that you feel it necessary to condemn any act of mine. You will first consider it well and be satisfied that it does not violate your reservations.
Agreed, said Arthur. That is only fair, and now about the poor parlors. However, may I ask what it is we are to do?
I want you to come with me, and come in secret to the churchyard at Kingstead.
Arthur's face fell as he said in an amazed sort of way, "My poor Lucy is buried?" The professor bowed. Arthur went on. And when there?
To enter the tomb.
Arthur stood up. Professor, are you in earnest? Or is it some monstrous joke? Pardon me, I see that you are in earnest. He sat down again, but I could see that he firmly and proudly, as one who is on his dignity. There was silence until he asked, "And what in the tomb?"
To open the coffin.
"This is too much," he said, angrily rising again. "I am willing to be patient in all things that are reasonable, but in this desecration of a grave of one who—" He fairly choked with indignation. The professor looked pityingly on him.
If I could spare you one pang, my poor friend, he said, God knows I would. But this night our feet must tread in thorny paths, or later, and forever, the feet you love must walk in the path of flame.
Arthur looked up with a set, his face white, and said, "Take care, sir, take care."
Would it not be well to hear what I have to say? Said Van Helsing. And then you will at least know the limit of my purpose. Shall I go on?
"That's fair enough," broke in Morris. After a pause, Van Helsing went on, evidently with an effort.
Miss Lucy is dead, is it not so? Yes. Then there can be no wrong in her. But if she not be dead...
Arthur jumped to his feet. "Good God!" he cried. "What do you mean? Has there been some mistake? Has she been buried alive?" He groaned in anguish that not even hope could soften.
I did not say she is alive, my child. I did not think it. I go no further than to say that she might be an undead.
"Undead? Not alive? What do you mean? Is this all a nightmare, or what is it?"
There are mysteries which only men can guess at, by which age by age they may solve only in part. Believe me, we are now on the verge of one. But I have not done. May I cut off the head of dear Miss Lucy?
"Heavens and earth, no!" cried Arthur in a storm of passion. "Not for the wide world will I consent to any mutilation of her dead body. Dr. Van Helsing, you try me too far. What have I done to you that you should torture me so? What did that poor sweet girl do to you that you want to cast such dishonor on her grave? Are you mad that you speak of such things that I am mad to listen to them? Don't dare to think more of such desecration. I shall not give my consent to anything you do. I have a duty to do my protecting of the grave from outrage, and by God, I shall do it." Go on. Van Helsing rose up from where he had all this time been seated, and said gravely and sternly,
My Lord Godalming, I too have a duty to do. A duty to others, a duty to you, a duty to the dead, and by God I shall do it. All I ask you now is that you come with me, that you look and listen, and if when later I make the requests you do not be more eager for its fulfillment even than I am, then I shall do my duty, whatever it may seem to be. And then, to follow your lordship's wishes, I shall hold myself at your disposal to render an account to you, when and where you will."
His voice broke a little, and he went on with an accent full of pity.
"But I beseech you, do not go forth in anger with me. In a long life of acts which were not often not pleasant to do, and which sometimes did wring my heart, I have never had so heavy a task as now. Believe me that if the time comes for you to change your mind towards me, one look from you will wipe away all of this so sad hour, for I will do what a man can to save you from sorrow. Just think, for why should I give myself so much of labor and so much of sorrow? I have come here of my own land to do what I can good, and the first to please my friend John, and then to help a sweet young lady whom too I came to love. For her I am ashamed to say so much, but I say it in kindness. I gave what you gave, the blood of my veins. I gave it, I, who was not, like you, her lover, but only her physician and her friend. I gave to her my nights and days before death, after death, and if death can do her good even now, when she is dead, undead, she shall have it freely."
He said this with a very grave, sweet pride, and Arthur was much affected by it. He took the old man's hand, and said in a broken voice, "Oh, it is hard to think of, and I cannot understand. But at least I will go with you, and wait." Okay. That was a little bit more intense than I had wanted to try to do Van Helsing's voice in. But that finishes chapter 15, so we got 3 more chapters read tonight. I'm tired and a little hoarse, so I might look for a pony. I do like to thank you all for being here. And tomorrow should be a little bit more cheerful note since we'll be going back to fairy tales again. But for now, let's see who's on that we can read and pass all this wonderful attention to. Or if anyone lurking has any suggestions for one, well, gladly accept those too. I don't see many people that I avidly follow on right now. Let's see, a couple people doing art. Oh, Dusk is on playing Fallout. Read her. Chances are some of the people that are in here now are probably already in there. So I'll pop a pink one on. Looks like Hills is still ending her marathon run. He's on Bank Chronocross. Let's go and rate Dusky. See if my rate message actually works this time. Oh. Does it show? Does it show? Cool. My message actually works. Yay! So let's go raid Dusk. And then I want to see if the raid message will actually copy over. So if anyone's up to doing a quick copy and paste of it, you can post it as many times as you want, just don't completely swamp her with it. And again, tomorrow will be fairy tales, and depending on how the vote goes, I may be back to Werewolf the Apocalypse next Wednesday. It is a chat chooses the answers, so it's kind of going to be a choose your own adventure thing with you guys choosing the answers. So, yeah. But anyway, thank you all for coming in and listening in, and hope you enjoyed it. I will definitely try to get my voice out of Van Helsing mode. And yeah. Hope you all have a good night or a good time zone, or, hope I'll see you tomorrow. So have a good night or a good time zone, and yeah, let's go see what's going on with Dusk. In 5, 4, 3, 2,